Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to have the time to speak to you today. I watched the film this morning with my 4-year-old who was transfixed, as was I. So huge congrats on the movie.
Thank you.
For people who haven't seen it yet, though, maybe you can give us a brief intro. What can they expect going into Paddington in Peru?
They can expect a rip-roaring adventure involving Paddington taking the Browns back to his homeland to show them where he's from, but their nice family trip doesn't go quite as planned, and a bit more adventure happens than they banked for, especially Mr. Brown.
And of course, the first film, second film, just beloved by all. I guess the bar was already set pretty high. So where to take the story next? I mean, it kind of seems like such a genius move to take Paddington back to his roots. And I believe Paul King was even basing some of the, the Inca mythology and the setting on Werner Herzog's kind of films and things like that. When you picked up that script, what was really the thing that excited you most about this project?
I do love adventure films. I love, classic adventure. I love Indiana Jones. I love Hergé books. I love Spielberg, and I love classic storytelling, but I also love the tone that Paul had employed in the first two films, and wanted to see if we could translate that into a slightly different environment to London. I was interested in creating a slightly stylized version of Peru, the same way as Paul had done with London, and that was an interesting challenge. Then I thought Paddington is great at these large set-piece slapstick sequences, and if you're in a place that has crazy torrential rivers, enormous labyrinthine Incan citadels, then that's going to be an interesting place to do some Paddington action sequences.
And of course, you've been involved with the first two as well. What's it like coming back for this third time round? And what was maybe similar, but also completely different in terms of, shooting on location, bringing in this whole new kind of environment into the Paddington sphere?
Well, obviously, it really was a big new beginning with Paul going off to do Wonka, and new writers, new director. But what was there was Paddington, this immutable character that never changes and that we all love. And it did feel like it made sense in the first film, he leaves Peru and comes to London, and in this third film for him to come full circle. And it's just been a joy to get. We found so many of the Paddington family wanted to come together. The cinematographer, the animation director, the set decorator, so many people came back. And once we found our wonderful director, it's just been a joy getting the train back on the track, following the instincts of that bear who has his own logic. A story is always led by what would Paddington do, how would Paddington respond, how would Paddington feel about this. And so that story of him trying to figure out where he belongs, where's his home, and bring the whole Brown family sort of full circle with him felt like, an irresistible challenge and adventure to go on.
Amazing voice cast. We've got that continuity. Ben Whishaw, once again, completely knocking out the park as Paddington.
Ben Whishaw is just phenomenal. He's such an artist, and he has taken this character to his heart so much. And when we've worked with him doing his voice creation, it's just so moving to see how he just sheds everything from the outside world and just totally focuses on being this, very pure-spirited, beautiful bear. And that voice is so wonderful. And, I think a lot of the tears that people shed in the films always just come from how beautifully moving Ben's voice is.
Was it also fun to bring on some new characters, especially Olivia Colman?
The comic brilliance of Olivia Colman and Antonio Banderas is obviously always going to really help the film. So we were absolutely thrilled that they felt like totally natural fits for the world of Paddington, and all this spontaneous gaiety that Olivia brings and all that swashbuckling glamour that Antonio brings. It was a lot of fun.
And what was it like on the shoot itself, working with all these voice actors, working with, on location?
Well, there's fantastic. I mean, Antonio was a hoot on the shoot. He would talk to anyone. He was really mucked in. He liked to do as much physical stuff as possible. We often had to stop him and said, actually, the stuntman should be doing this. And he was like, no, I can do it. He was a joy. He was great, and he brought loads of ideas. Olivia, as Rosie says, as soon as she entered wearing her nun's habit and carrying her guitar, she just lit up the set. Everything made sense. The Home for Retired Bears became the living, breathing Home for Retired Bears. And all her nun colleagues and compatriots just seemed to slot in perfectly around her. So they were wonderful. They really seemed like the inevitable choices to put in the film. And then we had the added magic of them interacting with Paddington when we got round to that stage.
And what are the logistics of that? Because it looks so seamless. I mean, don't even remember that's an animation.
Sure.
But, it must be quite difficult even for the actors at different moments.
Yeah, they have to be very patient. And, it's fantastic that Hugh Bonneville is such a centre of these films, and he's so precise and brilliant at nailing the tone and being the sort of conscience keeper of exactly what the right tone of the film is. And so they've all got used to feeling that the bear's there. But as Hugh says, he always just thinks he is there. So he has a very strong sense that Paddington is there, even if he's not.
And what do you think it is about this character, Michael Bond's creation? I mean, one of the most recognisable figures from literature, probably, everyone across the world would recognise Paddington Bear. There is just something so wonderful about this character, but also in these films. And again, this idea of family or found family, understanding where you're from, understanding your identity. Like, there's some really great themes there for both adults and children to really get their teeth into.
Agreed. I mean, Michael Bond came up with this very simple but profound creation. It's a bit like Charlie Chaplin inventing the tramp. He's the quintessential immigrant. He's always an outsider who sees the world with fresh eyes. He both loves his new home, yet he belongs to another home. He belongs to everyone. And he travels through the world with his beautiful manners and his politeness and his egalitarian spirit, being open to everybody and kind to everybody, seeing the best in others. And of course, he's a great comic creation, and he has endless comic mishaps, but everything always turns out right for him in the end, which is very reassuring.
And for you, what do you think is so great about this sort of quintessentially British character?
Well, he represents a way of looking at the world that we'd all aspire to. We all like to think of seeing the world with his eyes, with the innocence that we've lost, or the tolerance that sometimes it's hard to maintain in the modern world, and the very simple idea that being nice to people and being kind and polite to people always makes the world a little more right.
Very nicely put. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the film.
That's very
Maybe
kind.
you're the fourth, or can't say anything yet.
We would
early for that.
never tempt fate. We would never tempt fate. But,
Thanks so much.
but thank you for coming along.